Okay, we're getting ready to create that final project that we've all been waiting for. And those 4 drawings that we've been working on, where we've been working on our value and shading, are going to be put into this new booklet, this book that's also a piece of art in and of itself. So this paper you should have turned in already so that it's going to be available to you once you finish your book. You'll be able to cut these out. These were put to the exact size you need to put them on the inside. So if you haven't turned these in yet, make sure you do so that you're ready for that step when it's time. Now, some other things that you're going to be using. We just recently created some wild and crazy paper. So some people liked the manila paper, which looks a little bit older looking by the color. And then we sprayed paint on that. Some people used some of the brighter colored paper and did the same thing. You could also mask off areas by laying paper or something across while you were painting, and we sprayed it on from our spray bottles. So this is liquid watercolor. All right, so some different examples. These were just quick or leftovers, and I'm going to use them for this example. All right, so the cover is going to be made up of both this paper, and then we're also using something called chipboard. Sometimes, like the other book examples that I showed you, I just use cereal box, cut it out from there. But I had a bunch of this chipboard donated, so it doesn't have any print on it, and it was much easier to cut because they're all the same size, width, and thickness. So we're going to use that this time. But if you have cereal boxes, cracker boxes, whatever, just so that it's cardboard, and this is 4.5 inches for this square. And one of the things that I will be giving you is a whole booklet of templates and patterns for your explosion booklet. So that template, 4.5 inch chipboard or cereal box, that's this one right here. So that's 4.5 inches. Okay, so that's printed out. You can cut those out. You can make your own out of cardboard to trace if you're planning to make more books. Okay, here's a 3.5 inch, which will be important in a little bit. 6 inches is what we're going to use for our decorative cover paper. Okay, 8 inches is for the inside pages, and I will have already cut those for you in class, but if you're working from home, you'll need to create 8-inch squares for those center pages that create the book. In order to do this, I usually flip it over so that I don't mess up this side. So kind of decide what part of this design do you like best. Okay, and then you need your 6-inch pattern. You can either measure it out yourself, you can cut out your pattern. Sometimes I take pencil and go all the way around the outside so that you've got some graphite on there. So if you look for where the lines are and you put graphite on the back side, so if you've got your printout, that's one way you can do it. Now this happens to be a charcoal pencil, so it's a little bit darker. But I'm putting that on the paper right where the lines are. So that way I can flip this over in a minute and trace, and it will transfer some of this paper over. And some people also have graphite transfer paper. If you're an artist and you've got one of those little kits sitting around at your house and you might have some of that, use that too. There are lots of ways. All right, so I flipped that around. I'm going to flip this over so I don't mess up my work. I'm thinking, let's see, I might take this spot. So I'm going to flip right here, and I'm going to set this down on here and take my pencil. You're going to want to press firmly, but you're going to go along on this square and trace, and hopefully my charcoal is doing its job on the other side, or graphite if you used your pencil. You can trace that. We're going to find out in a second. I'm trying to stay on my lines. Okay. All right, so when I flip it over, look at that. I've got a line to work with. And one little spot here, I can just fill that in with my pencil. All right, so now I know that I can cut that out. There's still some charcoal on here, so I can trace on my other page. But I'm going to cut this square out and cut out one for the back, so you have to have front and back. And then we'll start assembling. Okay, so now we've cut those out. These scraps might still be big enough to use for something else in our book later, so I'm going to set those aside. These are still looking pretty cool, so maybe you can think of something to make a project out of those later. Okay, so I'm going to move those out of the way. Alright, so I have my two 6-inch decorative outer paper covers. Okay, so that's going to be the outside cover of your book. This is where those 4.5-inch inside cardboard pieces are going to come in. Alright, so this is going to be front and back cover. You could decide which one's which in a moment. But right now the important part is flipping these over. So painted side is down. Alright, and then we're going to actually take this and we're going to glue it sort of in the center. If it's not perfectly centered, it's not a big deal because most of this is going to get hidden. Alright, so we're going to put glue on this and then try to center it the best we can. So here. Alright, so let me get my glue stick. I'm going to put it on the cardboard part because I think that's going to be easier to kind of eyeball where it needs to be as far as being in the center. Put a little bit across the middle. Make sure you get fairly close to the edges. It's not a bad idea to have some scrap paper around because a lot of times your glue will go off to the edges and kind of mess things up. Alright, so I'm going to press this down. That looks pretty good. Okay, so press that down. Kind of smooth across to make sure it makes contact with all of the paper. Okay, so here's your design. Alright, the next step, I'm going to set these aside so I have some more room. The next step is to put some glue along this edge. And this is where I think that scrap piece of paper could come in handy. So let's see. Stick that underneath here. So that way I don't mess up my surface area because sometimes the glue will go off the edge. Alright, so I'm going to take this glue and I'm going right along this edge right here. Okay, and then we're going to fold it so it's a nice tight fold right up to the edge. And once you get that creased, then you close it up, all the way across. So it looks like that. Alright, and I'm going to flip it around and do the same thing on this side. Okay. So glue all the way down. Notice some of it's probably going, it is going on my paper. And that's why I put it there, so I won't have a mess on my desk or on any of my good paper. Alright, again, I'm pushing this right up against the edge of that cardboard so that it's creasing it and making a nice clean seam. Alright, so we've got that part folded over. Now, we're going to do something with these little corners so that they look neater. So we'll see what I did here is I folded this so it's like a little triangle. Okay, and we're going to glue that down as well. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on that flap that we created. Alright, and we're going to do this on every corner. So this one, I'm going to fold it first, make a flap, then you go here, put some glue, fold it down. Now flip it around, make a flap, put some glue, and fold it down. Alright, got one more, so make the flap, so fold it so you've got a nice little, okay, then open it back up, put some glue on there, fold it down. Alright, so far so good, it's looking pretty nice and neat. Okay, now I'm going to put glue on this edge all the way across. Make sure it's glued well because you want it to stay down. Okay, here we go again, making sure it's a good clean fold. Alright, and those nice corners that we have now because we made those flaps. Nice and neat. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing on this side. Alright. Folding it down. Okay, make sure it's pressed down really well. Okay, so now we've got this. The cool thing later is this part, where the brown square is still showing through the cardboard, is going to get covered up because our inside pages are actually going to get glued to this. So this will create a nice edge. Alright, so there's one of my covers, looking good. We're going to do the same steps all over again with the other piece of paper and the other piece of cardboard. Alright, so go ahead and repeat that process again. You can always go and rewind the video if you need to see the steps again. Alright, I now have my front and back covers all made. They're all nicely folded and glued down, so we're good to go. We'll be able to complete our outside of our explosion booklet. All right, so the next step is we need to decide which one's going to be your back cover, which one will be your front. So I've got this one, I got this one. I said I think I'm going to leave this as the back. Okay, this one's a little more visually interesting, so I'll use that as the front. All right, so next we need to cut some string or ribbon. In this case, I'm going to use some string, but it needs to be about 24 inches long. So just take your string. Okay, so there's 12 and about 24. Okay, so then you have to cut that. So cut your string, whatever scissors you have sitting around. Okay, and then you need a piece of tape. Scotch tape or anything like that will work. I would try to find the center of your strings just so that you can kind of get it in the middle. So it's about equal on both sides. But we're going to tape this in so that you don't lose it. All right, because eventually your pages are going to go over the top of this, but we want to make sure it stays in place. Okay, so eventually when your book is all put together, this will come over the top and you'll be able to tie it shut, okay, with your string. Now, like I said, you can use ribbon, yarn, jute, which is kind of a natural stuff that a lot of people sometimes use in their gardens. Raffia. There's a lot of different things you can use. So whatever you can use that will allow you to tie your booklet shut and keep it closed up will be fine. Okay, so we're going to set this aside now. You got your string taped in here. The other thing you need to do so that you know this is yours is put your name in here. Just because we have so many people making them in class, we want to make sure that we know these are your pieces. And we'll try to keep them together. But that way, if they happen to get separated, we can get them back to the correct person. All right. All right, the next step in making our explosion booklet is to have 8-inch squares. So we need 1, 2, 3. 3 8-inch squares, and I've already cut those for the class. So once you have those, it's a matter of folding them. So we'll set 2 aside and start with the first one. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is I'm going to turn it so it's kind of diamond shaped here. And I'm going to fold it right up to the edge here. Okay, and you try to crease it. Get as close to exact as you can get it. I mean, it may not be 100% perfect. Now we've got a triangle. Now we're going to open it up because we need a really good crease. And you can run that over there a few times. Okay, open it up, turn it again so it's a diamond with this line going through the center. And now we're going to fold it again into the triangle. And the reason I didn't fold these double the other way is because we need that good crease. And if you would have one good crease and one that's not so good if you tried to do 2 steps in that last one. All right, so we're going to open it back up again. You can see I've got this nice little crease going through the center. Okay, this is going kind of downward, so it's like a valley fold. So now we're going to flip it, so it's more like a mountain. This is sticking up now. Kind of looks like one of your drawings, if you look at it, the shape. All right, now we're going to fold it this way. So we're folding it up to meet this edge, and we're going to crease it really well all the way across. And then open it up again. Turn it around so it still looks like a square. We need a line that goes across here, so we're going to fold it again. Okay, and then crease that really well. All right, so now when you open this up, it gets a little tricky. You have to look at it, but I can see right now these two are going to come in. So if I push these two inward, I get my squares that look like this. And it magically goes together, and it always looks easy on the video. Hopefully it behaved and worked easily for you as well. Okay, but you can see I open this up. There it is. And I push that back in. Okay. All right, so there's one section. You have to do that 2 more times because we need 3 of these. Alright, we now have those 3 inner pages that we've been working on. Alright, so I set this one aside. I'm going to put glue on this center piece because this is my center page right here. I'm going to go ahead and glue that right now so that I can glue this one down to it. And this is where it can get a little crazy. I should have my scrap paper under there so I don't get on my surface, but I think I'll be alright for this time. Alright. Now I'm going to slide this onto here, making sure that it's lining up with the previous square, because if you get it over the edges, it's not going to fold back together properly. Okay, and hopefully your glue gives you a little bit of forgiveness so you can slide it if you need to before it dries. The glue I'm using right now dries pretty quickly. Alright, so we've got that one done. I'm going to slide this over. Okay, so now that I've got this one kind of coming up like a mountain, this one's in the valley fold, it should slide back together. Okay, it did. So don't freak out, it just messes with your mind a minute. But once you get that together, I just was double checking the folds and the creases, but you can see it's working like it should. Okay, so now I'm going to put this one out here. This last piece, remember, it has to be facing like it can go into this one. So this is the mountain fold, valley fold, because it's going downward. This one's up, so now I can put it here and then flatten it out so I can know where to glue it. Alright, that just helps you so that it will fold nicely when we're done. Okay, so let's go ahead and put glue around this section right here. Again, I should have my scrap paper under here just in case my glue stick goes off the edge so I don't end up with glue all over my work surface. Alright, so let me slide this in here, make sure that it's staying within its own little square boundaries so that it doesn't mess up the rest of my book. And then I'm going to smooth that out. Okay, hope it stays stuck. And then we're going to play this game again. So I'm going to pop that back up so there's mountain, valley, mountain. Which should be good. Alright, and we're going to try to get our book to fold back up. It's going to be a little stubborn at first because it hasn't been opened and closed a lot yet, so you can just kind of run those creases and push down on it. Okay, but now when I open this, there you go, it's working. And then we can close it back up. Okay, close. Woo! Ran away from me. It exploded right out of my hands. There we go. So, once it's all closed up, it looks like this nice little square. Okay? Inside is where all of your artwork is going to go. So that will be the next step. Putting our 4 pieces of artwork in the middle, and then those will be our drawings in this case. And then we'll do our fractured pieces where you take the same size square, but we cut them into a triangle so that there's a piece of art on each side, like in this one. So in this example, once I opened it up, our artwork will go in each square, and you can see that the black paper becomes like a framework. Okay, and these are also squares. In this paper, I happen to use a different technique. I was using shaving cream and liquid watercolor, and we swirled it around and then made prints of that. So this is paper made from that. And then I took Sharpies and kind of played with what designs did I see. Sometimes they were random, sometimes they look like something, but just things that came to mind as I was working on it. All right, but those you can see are fractured. So we took the square, we cut it in half, slid them apart so they're still framed in, and that becomes the outer artwork for your explosion book. All right, so I put this together, and it's going to open up. Eventually your artwork is going to be put inside here in each of these squares through the center. But I've got the front and the back of my book here. So this part's going to get glue, and this is going to get glue. So I determined that this is going to be my back cover. Set that down on my workspace. And I'm going to look and I say, okay, this is my back page. We're going to put glue on this part of the back page. So make sure you know which piece you're getting getting ready to glue down so you don't have your book messed up. Otherwise, it might become the front page. Not a big deal, but it might be, depending on what you were thinking originally. Alright. Alright, so I'm putting some glue on here, and then we're going to try to line it up pretty well. So see, it's covering up all that cardboard that was showing before, and you've got a little nice, framing of your creative paper that we created with the watercolors. Alright, so this is now glued on over that string. Adjust it quickly before the glue dries if it's not where you want it. So I'm just fixing the string so it's more centered. Alright, now when I open this up, that's glued to the book cover, and this is now going to be glued to the front cover. So I'm going to put glue all the way around the edge of this one and through the center, but I like to start with the edges so I don't forget to get to the edges, and that way I can hold it down and then move my finger out and hope that it doesn't get stuck to me. Okay. Alright, then you're going to flip this over and decide where that cover is going to go. Try to line it up so you're smushing it down like a sandwich here, so your pages become the filling. Alright. And then just press that down, hold it a little bit. Okay. So now I have my cover attached. Look at that, it's so cool. Alright. So the cover's on there. You can see how the artwork is going to show in a little bit. So we're going to start putting the rest of our artwork in place. So I'm going to kind of flatten this out for a minute. Okay, I cut out all of my squares, so I'm going to go ahead and glue them in. Alright, I think I want my squares here, so let me get my scrap paper here to do my gluing so it doesn't get all over my work surface. Alright, flip it over. Put your glue on that square. Okay, now it's curling a little bit from the moisture in the glue, but I'm going to put it on here. I'm going to line it up the best I can, leaving edges all the way around so it looks framed in. You don't want it to be touching any of the creases because otherwise it will affect how you can fold up your book. Alright, so now we've got another one done. Let's slide this over. I'm going to put in my next picture. So that one's going to go here. This one's going to be here. Decide which way you want it. Alright, let's put some glue on here. Alright, glue all the way around those edges. Alright, then find a nice spot for it on your page. Smooth it out carefully. If you got glue on your fingers, try not to touch it with that part because it'll get stuck to your artwork. Might mess it up. Alright, so we got 3 down, 1 to go. So we're going to go ahead and put glue on this one. Again, got my scrap paper here to keep my work surface clean, free of glue because my scrap paper is covered with it. Alright, so there we go. Now I'm going to put that right there. You have a perfect spot to show off all this hard work that you've been doing. Alright, so that one's now in there. So I've got my 4 main pieces of art. Those are all the drawings. They are now through the center of your explosion book. The next step involves choosing what you're going to do for all these little triangular parts. Okay, so we'll take a break from this spot. Okay, so we're on the step where we're going to need this template again. The 3.5-inch template. This is for your inner art sections. Now, we're also going to be cutting this from corner to corner so that we can do those triangular pieces. But again, you can do the same thing you did with this one. You can put the charcoal on the back or graphite, whatever you happen to have, so that you can trace it on the back. So I put it on kind of heavily. Because remember, you want a lot of it to come off of your page. The charcoal makes an awful sound when it's touching the paper in this case, so I'm trying to do it quickly. There, it's not so bad this time, but every once in a while it makes that squealy sound. Alright, so I got some charcoal on here, or graphite, whichever you have available. Okay, like I said, you can also cut this out and trace around it, or cut it out, or tape it to a piece of cardboard, and then cut out the cardboard so you have a nice piece of cardboard that's easy to trace around over and over again. There are lots of options here. Okay, so I'm going to set these aside. And I've got all of this really wild paper that we've been making that has different colors, textures, kind of stuff going on. Yours might have more. These were just quick demos. They're not actually completed, but they're fine for the purpose of demonstration. So once you decide where you want these, because these can go any way you want, we're going to flip it over again. Take your square and say, okay, I want this circle right in the middle. You might have to hold it up to the light and let it shine through your circle so that you can see. I mean, you're not going to be able to see it on camera, but I held it up to the light and I said, okay, my circle's kind of in here. If you don't want the whole circle in there, you don't have to have it in there. That's totally up to you. It just depends on what it is you created those designs for. But again, you trace around your square, and while you're doing that, that graphite or charcoal is coming off onto the paper, and we're doing it on the back side. That way if you mess up, it's no big deal. You can always redraw or choose a different spot and it doesn't mess up your artwork. So now you can kind of see where that circle is, and when I get ready to cut these, I can decide. Now in this case it doesn't really matter, but these, if you have a ruler handy or if you're just good at eyeballing it, that's fine too. But you can take your ruler and go corner to corner, because these are going to turn into those triangle pieces. So just mark that off so that you know later. You should be able to get 3 pieces out of your paper, maybe more depending on how you lay it out. Alright, since I made a cardboard piece, I'm just going to use that because it's quicker. Alright, so I've got this one I like. I'm going to take one from right here. We're just going to see how random they come out. So I've got my 3.5 square, 3.5 inches. I'm going to mark it on here real quick with a pencil. There's one. Okay, again, you can decide, alright, is there one side that I like better than the other for dividing it on? And if it doesn't really matter, then just pick one. Okay, so now I've got that one marked. So we have to have, I believe, 6 for the top and 6 for the bottom. And then maybe I'll do one here, so I get part of that circle design in one part of my triangle that I'm going to create. And again, we had that other scrap of paper too that was left over from the cover. So if you really liked part of that and you have enough left to get a 3.5 inch square, you could flip those over and do it there too. And I'm going to do one of those since this has a pretty cool design in it. I'm going to put it here because maybe I'll decide to use one of these instead of one of the other ones. Okay, so I'll set that aside. Again, you can do your crisscross line right here that goes from corner to corner. Alright, and then this one, not quite as exciting, but maybe the paper appeals to you because it's darker and you might want to play with that pattern to break up the bright paper versus the more muted tones. Not quite as bright colored paper because it looks kind of antique looking. Alright. And then we'll run our line from there to there. Okay, so you can decide, but you're going to cut all these out. I wouldn't cut the triangles into triangles until you're ready to start gluing them, simply because if you have to, we run out of time in class, and you have a bunch of triangle pieces, it's harder to keep track of them if they're several small pieces as opposed to just a few square pieces. Alright, so these need to be cut out, so cut out your squares, and then we'll work on triangles and how to assemble them in your explosion book. Okay, then cut down the center. And then again, I would only do this if you're ready to start assembling. Okay. set your scrap somewhere away from you because it's going to get confusing with all these little pieces laying around. But each of these triangles are going to get cut out, like I said before. I've got all of these from this paper as well. But we're going to cut them out, and then we're going to decide, okay, these two go together, these two go together. I'm going to pull out my book. When you're ready to start assembling them, I start laying them out inside the book. So I flatten it out and I say, okay, where do I want this? So if I decide, since I know I have 6 pieces on top and bottom, I might use the more antique looking or the yellowy looking paper in the center to help balance out where the lighter ones will go over here later. Okay, but again, you have to watch where the folds are when you get ready to glue them in. Because you don't want to glue on the fold, you want to be in between, and there should be a slight framework going on here by the black paper. Okay, so these are a little trickier. Get my scrap paper out again. I'm going to go ahead and glue those down just so you can see that process. Okay, so take this and you're going to put glue on the triangle, not on this part, but on the triangle that you just cut out. Again, using that scrap paper so that it's not getting all over your surface area that you're working on, because it's a pain to work with a sticky surface. Alright, so then we're going to glue this in carefully, make sure it's not crossing the folds, that is just behind that crease that goes right through here. Okay, so there's one down. Good deal. Now we're going to go ahead and glue the one that mates up to it on this side. Sticking to my fingers. You may have to wash your hands every once in a while if the glue gets too bad. You may have to go wash it off just so you can work without getting stuck to your artwork. Alright, so here we go again, lining up the best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. But it cannot cross those creases. Alright, so I've got that one in, and then I have to glue this one, and then we'll cut out those other pieces and glue them in place in the same fashion. Okay, so go ahead and glue yours together.